All right, all right. How's everybody doing? Make sure let me get these social media posts out. Welcome everyone to our week 3 preview show.
It's good.
I'm your host Frank Langella, joined obviously by my co-host Marcelio Langella. Another great week of football. Mars, how's it going?
Oh man, we're back at it again. Another week. I got a lot of people talking a lot of trash, so I'm looking forward to seeing how that goes.
Yes, absolutely. And again, just gonna let me just get a couple of those quotes out. Marsman is gonna put up a similar poll that we did last week on who you think is gonna win the games as game picks this week. We want to welcome our audience. As always, appreciate you guys as always for tuning in. This is our week 3 preview show. We're gonna be talking about as the week goes on. I think starting next week um, we're probably going to start bringing up some standing stuff, right? Because now we're getting past week 3. There's been teams that have played some week 0 games, so quite a few games going on. We're going to go through all the games. We're going to pick all the games. We'll kind of break down some of the big matchups a little bit more. So we'll do that. I've also dealing with a bit of a cold or sore throat, so I apologize if my volume is a little scratchy. So with that said, guys, thank you as always for tuning in. Make sure you hit that thumbs up and sub if you haven't done so yet already. And what I'm going to do is we are going to, before we dive in, we'll talk about last week, Mars. And, it was not, I would say not the greatest when we talk about last week game picks wise. I went 21-8. You went 17-11.
That's not bad. I was taking some gambles out there, but it's not the worst.
So the chat was right. They voted on 60% that what was it, 60 something percent that I was going to be correct. They are correct on that. Secondly, we set a goal before the year 2 years ago. We started doing it where we're competing against each other, but we also want to get a certain percentage, right? So that it was 70% we want to get correct. Then last year was 75. I think 70% we both got over. 75, I think I did at 77%, 78%. This year we wanted to get 80. And right now, Mars, we are currently I'm sitting at 70%, and you're sitting at 64. Right. So we got some work to do here to get up to that goal of 80%. 80% is a lot. But, let's get into it. So let's pull up one more thing. So as we made the game picks last week, we obviously know one of the big victories, and shout out to the two teams of the week. Don't have Valhalla gear, so Valhalla is the team of the week for the small group, but Mamaroneck for the big group for their big win versus North Rockland. But another team had a big victory, and that's Carmel. So Carmel beat Suffern. I picked Carmel. Mars picked Suffern, and one of the things I do enjoy about this, I had a good fun. I love interacting with the fans, the players, coaches. So Mars, I don't know if you saw, but they have this Carmel bar stool, and I'm popping it up on the screen. And they, I guess, they're a fan account, not associated with the program or the high school, but they had a little jest here. This is Mars after picking Suffern to win, and I love it. It means that they're watching, they're paying attention, and they're taking a little bit of little shots. I know Westlake the week before was trolling us, so I do love that they tune into the show, watch the show, and that's all good and fun. Those kind of stuff I like. And then I've actually gotten a kick. I've seen some of these Barstool accounts for these different athletic programs. So let me know which Barstool accounts there are. I think I followed a few of them already. Some of them are actually pretty good at their little meme game. Some of them, I'll be honest, guys, you need some more work. So we'll leave it at that. Where's the memes when we actually get things right is the big question.
Yeah, I know. Listen, I don't mind being the Skip Bayless or the Stephen A. Smith of the Section 1 HVFL game. I don't mind being that guy. But I'm gonna be honest. When I get those picks right, I'm gonna be that obnoxious guy strolling onto stream, and I'm gonna let you hear about it when I'm right. So I'm gonna just be waiting for that day. I'll tell you.
So shots are fired. All right, guys. So let's start diving into it. If there's any audio issues, make sure you guys let us know. This we're going to start with the Double A, and we're going to go down all the way to the Hudson Valley Football League. So that's where we're going to start, because last week we did the Hudson Valley Football League and then went up. So this time we'll go back. Let's start diving into the games. First one's up, a big rivalry game in Double A, and that is we have Arlington, who's 1-2, at John Jay East Fishkill, who is 0-3. And these two teams have played a lot. This is a big rivalry between the two schools. They played each other since 2004, Mars, 21 times. And John Jay is 14-7 versus Arlington, but Arlington has won the last two matchups. And let's start again in this game. Looking at these two teams, listen, the Arlington offense, they've scored 3 touchdowns in 3 games, and they're last in points scored in Double A. So offense has been a mixed bag, to say the least. They run a 2-quarterback system. I'm seeing with Feldman and Rancourt. Rancourt is a little bit more athletic. Feldman's a little bit bigger. John Jay East Fishkill, their defense, they're 13 out of 15 in points allowed. So I'm interested to see who is going to come out on top. Is John Jay going to play better defense? Is Arlington's going to play better offense? I am going to go with John Jay. This one might surprise them, but they are home. Throw their records out the door. John Jay can move the ball throwing. I saw quarterback Lawrence make some big plays. Nate Johnson is someone to keep an eye on. The issue I have is Arlington's defense. They gave up 6 points last week, but they have struggled to give up big plays, whether it's in the run game or the pass game. And I feel there's some opportunity there for John Jay. Now they have to slow down the run. Russo's been really solid the last couple games for Arlington. They are starting to get more physical running the football. But they're last in the league in offense and points scored. So to me, I'm going to go with John Jay at home to win this game in a must-win for them.
Yeah, I feel like I'm also going to go with John Jay. I feel like the rivalry game, like you said, it really does throw that record out of the way. But I feel like John Jay's offensive capability is definitely going to be, I think, a lot more higher speed, higher power than what Arlington is used to. I know that the Carmel game was kind of a blowout at halftime, and then John Jay kind of crawled back, and they were scoring a lot of points against a Carmel team that obviously has issues on defense at times, but they are a powerhouse team. So I feel like they were keeping up with Carmel to a certain extent, and I feel like they have the ability to, kind of have a bounce back game. They're an 0-3 team, but I don't think they are kind of showing their record right now. I feel like they are way better than 0-3. I think John Jay is going to win this game.
Let's go to the next one, and this is Mount Vernon 1-2 at White Plains, who's 0-2. And Mount Vernon, they won 22-0 versus East Ramapo. And White Plains lost 48-30 versus Ketchum. Another interesting game. When I look at these two teams, I'm going to go. This one was not easy because Mount Vernon is on the road, but I am going to go with Mount Vernon. Listen, White Plains has shown their ability to move the ball. They're 6 out of 15 teams in Double A in points scored, led by Nick Sexton. But defensively, they're last. They're last in the league in points allowed. They give up a lot of points. Mount Vernon, they've scored 20-plus points in 2 straight games. Quarterback Chase White has made some impressive plays over the last few weeks. This defense, they forced a couple turnovers. They're 6th in points allowed. I'm going to go with Mount Vernon in this matchup.
Yeah, I feel like I'm also going to go with Mount Vernon, mainly because I agree with you. I feel like defense is definitely going to allow them to kind of, at least slow things down for their benefit. White Plains defense has really been struggling to really slow down points. Like you said before, giving up 30-plus points back-to-back games. I really think they need to have a bounce-back game in order for them to really slow down any offense. So I feel like Mount Vernon has the advantage. I'm going to go with Mount Vernon.
All right, I see a lot more people filtering, guys. Don't worry if you missed anything. You guys can always go back and watch. This will be posted on our YouTube channel. If you go to the live tab, our shows get reposted in there. Welcome if you just joined in. Make sure you hit that thumbs up and sub if you haven't already. Let us know while we're picking the games who you think is going to win each matchup, and try to leave the bias at the door. Let's continue, Mars. Probably one of the cooler matchups. I think this is going to be a really good one. And this is Scarsdale 2-0 at Suffern, who is 1-2. And Scarsdale, they won 21-10 versus John Jay East Fishkill last game. Suffern lost 35-21 versus Carmel. So to me, these two teams are very interesting. And when you see how they played each other historically, Scarsdale's 5-4 versus Suffern, and these two teams have gone back and forth. They played last year where Scarsdale won 20-7, and they did a really good job defensively. This Scarsdale defense is lining up to be pretty damn good, Mars. This is the number 1 defense in Double A in points allowed so far through the first couple weeks. This is a scrappy defense. They're undersized, but can they stop Jeff Joseph? That's the question. And now offensively, they run that option attack, which is kind of the 3-headed monster. Starts with Gillian, then it goes to the quarterback and Ebner Borse, who had 3 touchdowns, and then a couple backs, right? Whether it's Krupkin, Brennan, and then when they go into that play action, it's Vibbert. So they have athletes. The question I have is, can they slow down Jeff Joseph, number one? And number two, what happens if they get behind? They've done a really good job of controlling the game. And when I look at Suffern, defense struggled to stop the run last week. They gave up over 200 yards on the ground. Is their defensive lineman Stallcup playing? Like, these are all big factors that weighed on my mind. With all that said, I am going to go with Suffern. I know Scarsdale is legitimate. This is not a joke. They play defense like a legitimate team, which will make them a contender because they're scrappy as heck. But my question is, Suffern can get ahead. This is the number 3 offense in points scored. They have scored 20-plus points in 3 straight games. Jeff Joseph back-to-back 100-yard games. This is the kind of game that the defensive front and offensive front have to take over for Suffern. I am going to go with Suffern.
You see, this one's really tough for me, mainly because, I picked Suffern last week. I got memed on because of it.
You got memed for it.
I got memed on for it, so I'm feeling the burn a little bit. Jeff Joseph obviously is a very talented player, and he obviously can be a game breaker. And Scarsdale has really been impressive. I mean, their defense has been really, really just balanced, and they just haven't been breaking. And like you said before, their offense is built to slow games down. And I feel like because of that, I'm going to go with Scarsdale. I feel like Scarsdale is going to slow the game pacing for their benefit. It's going to play all disciplined offense. And the question is going to be, can Suffern play enough with focus and discipline to really slow down or try to get Scarsdale behind the sticks? And I'm not really sure. I think Scarsdale's defense is going to be tough enough that they'll at least slow down any really playability from Jeff Joseph and at least slow him down. I think Scarsdale is going to win this game. I think it'll be a close one, though. I'm going to go Scarsdale.
All right, let's go to the next one. Welcome, Shar. No, we haven't gotten to A yet. We're in AA right now. Let's go to the next game. And that is North Rockland 1-2 at New Rochelle. That's 0-3. And North Rockland, they lost 20-14 at Mamaroneck. New Rochelle lost 13-6 at Arlington. Both lost close games. And when I look at this matchup, I'm going to pick North Rockland. The offense struggled last week. They were barely out on the field for most of the game. And when they got down, they had to change their offense because this is a run-heavy offense. They only had 12 yards, I think, total positive rush yards because, number one, they weren't on the field much. Defensively, they couldn't get off the field. So it really changed things. And then when they got down, they had to pass the ball. Now, good news is their quarterback, Perini, I thought he made some big plays. He had about 200 yards passing, 2 touchdowns. Jaslow had a receiving touchdown. Daquan Johnson had a receiving touchdown. But the turnovers, they had 3 turnovers, including that onside kick. Out of the gate that they lost. And New Rochelle struggled to stop the run. They gave up over 200 yards rushing last week. I think Jaquan Johnson gets going running the football. Defensively, this is the number 4 defense in points allowed in AA so far. And you got guys up front in the front 7 in Prisco, Garifol Hevner, that can make plays for you. So I'm going to go with North Rockland. If they make it a passing game, I think the secondary can make plays for North Rockland.
I feel like I'm going to also go North Rockland. I feel like they had a really tough game against Mamaroneck, and even though Arlington and Nero really had a showdown as well, I just feel like momentum is on more of a side for North Rockland. I feel like the game's kind of flushing for them. I feel like they're really going to have to develop the run and really get their hogs up front, really pushing people around. And the question I have for New Rochelle is about size. I mean, I know that they are a little bit small in the last few years when it comes to New Rochelle's normally, but I know there's a lot of heart on Nero. Right? I feel like the question is going to be whether they can kind of force North Rockland to be uncomfortable. But I don't think it's going to happen. I think North Rockland's going to win. I think it's a close game, but I'm going to go with North Rockland here.
Next matchup, we have East Ramapo 0-2 at Yonkers Brave. That's 2-1. And when I look at East Ramapo, I thought last week was disappointing. They lost 22-0 at Mount Vernon. Yonkers Brave had that really good game against Yonkers Forest. They lost 26-19. Again, it's hard because I feel East Ramapo, they have talent. They have to figure things out offensively. It was an absolute struggle last week. They had around 100 total yards. They had 2 INTs. And it starts with the run game. Osborne is really important. They got to get the run game going. Yonkers Forest has at times struggled to stop the run. So to me, if they can't get the ball running and it's a game where they have to throw, where they're behind, I think East Ramapo is going to struggle. And for that reason, I am going to go with Yonkers Brave. They're at home, Mars. They can run the ball very well. Their running back in Sissy had 3 straight 100-yard games, including 173 yards last week. If this defense can stop the run, Yonkers Brave can prove that they can run the football. And their quarterback, Joshua Attendi, he started making some plays last week. So I'm a believer in the Yonkers Brave this week. I think they win. They get their third win, which, again, I think only one time they've had 3 wins in a season. So I think they get it this week.
Yeah, I feel like I'm also going to go with Yonkers Brave. I'm a believer as well, and I feel like it's just the way that they've been playing. They've been really proving everybody wrong. A lot of people have not thought that they are capable of playing the way that they have been, and I feel like they can run the ball. Their O-line has been pushing people around. They just feel efficient, right? And I feel like because of that, I feel like Yonkers Brave has that advantage right now. So I'm going to go with Yonkers Brave.
All right, let's go to the next one, and then our game of the week. And that is another AA matchup, league play. Ossining 1-1 at Yonkers Force. That's 2-0. Another very interesting game. Ossining lost 10-6 versus Clarkstown South. Yonkers Force won 26-19 versus Yonkers Brave. Another very interesting matchup to me. And let me start. I'll start with the home team in Yonkers Force. I mean, it all starts with the quarterback. And Fields, he had 275 total yards last week, 4 touchdowns. He's electric. Dual threat guy. Can beat you running the football, can beat you hitting some big plays, and he has weapons. And Testamar, Henry, who had a touchdown last week, Diaz, who had a touchdown last week, and then Valero kind of adds that spell, because he's going to do a lot of running, but Valero's another guy, 64 yards rushing. They rushed for 282 yards last week. Now, defensively, they got to get a lot of pressure on they want to get Ossining out of the run game, because that's what Ossining does really well. But, again, that's Yonkers Force, and for Ossining, Mars, if they can shorten the game, control the clock, keep Yonkers Force on the sideline, that's their best benefit because they can run the football. They have multiple guys. We got Ramirez, who had over 140 yards, McCormick, Ibarra. Like, they have multiple guys who can run it, and this offensive line can move people. With all that being said, I am going to go with Ossining. And the reason I'm going with them is I know they struggled to avoid turnovers last week. They had 2 of them, which were killer. They have to protect the football. They need to control the clock. But this defense, Mars, number 2 in AA in points allowed. They are led by Aiden Moore. They forced 4 turnovers last week. They really gave themselves an opportunity to win if the offense could find the end zone, but they could not. But I think this time they do. Ossining wins this game.
This was definitely tough for me, mainly because Yonkers Force has been on a roll, and I do agree with you. They have a lot of weapons that they can target, and I just don't know if Ossining can really slow down an offense that has this many guys that can really get the ball and make some moves. And I think this is gonna be a really close game. And maybe I'm gonna sound crazy, or maybe I'll get some Ossining people to make some meme on me if I'm wrong. But I'm gonna go with Yonkers Force, and I feel like they actually have. They have some momentum, and I feel like that's the biggest thing. And they're at home; they have weapons. I feel like in the beginning they're gonna get ahead, right? And I feel like over time, Ossining is gonna kind of slow the game down to try to come back, and I think they will. But I just think it'll be just a little bit more for Yonkers Force to kind of have that advantage. I'm gonna go with Yonkers Force.
Yeah, maybe they'll make some memes about you being right. That's or either of us. Being
hopefully,
right.
yeah.
All right, let's go to our AA game of the week, and that is Mamaroneck 2-1 at Carmel, who's 2-0. This is another very interesting matchup between them, and the last, they played each other 10 times since 2004. Carmel is 7-3 versus Mamaroneck. They have won 5 straight in this matchup, and last year, it was a defensive slugfest for a while. They won 17-6. Let's start with Mamaroneck, Mars. They won 20-14 versus North Rockland in very impressive fashion. Now, offensively, it's been pretty mixed this year, but last week, they controlled the clock. And that was a big part of this offense. And it really revolves around that quarterback in Kieran Jacobson. He had 32 carries for 109 yards and a touchdown, but 10 of 15 for 98 yards. And the big thing, they were winning the early downs and converting on third down. And that was keeping the other offense off the field. And that is a formula that they're going to have to execute this time around. That is my number 1 key. To me, controlling the ball, because Carmel's offense has been really, really strong. So controlling the ball, winning on third down is going to be so important. And this offensive line, I mean, if they want to show that they are true contenders, this is those kind of weeks where the offensive line has to push around this Carmel defensive front 7 so that they can run the ball with some efficiency with their quarterback. They don't have a bell cow back, Mamaroneck, but that's going to be key. The second thing, this defense has to stop the run. There are going to be a lot of condensed formations. You're going to see a lot of shifting and motions from Carmel. You have to line up correctly, and you have to stop the run. And it's got to be a 4-quarter battle. It's not going to be because Carmel, we're going to talk about, has a guy who he just needs a little bit of space, and he could take it to the house at any moment. So it's a 4-quarter fight. But this defense, Mars, ranked 3rd in AA in points allowed. They have been scrappy. They forced, I think, 2 turnovers last week. Bone has made some big plays. They held North Rockland under 20 yards rushing last week. I don't think they hold Carmel under 20 yards rushing, but that's a good start right there. Mars, thoughts on Mamaroneck before we move to Carmel?
I mean, they definitely are a scrappy team, and I completely agree with you. And I mean, I guess the mantra should be this week that you got to hold Carmel to 50 yards on rush offense. I feel like if you say, hey, we're going to limit Waterloo and not allow him to own the game and allow Carmel, they would have to throw the ball over the field. I feel like that at least will then kind of give Mamaroneck a chance to kind of get some more plays or make some big time plays on defense. And like you said, 30 points allowed, I mean, is great, but you haven't been able to really play against a team with a high-powered offense as much as Carmel has been able to do the last few weeks. So the question is going to be, can this defense hold up against the team that has a lot of weapons? I mean, that's going to be the big question for me.
Yeah, and when you look at Carmel, they won 35-21 at Suffern. This is the number 1 offense in AA. They have been really electric these first 2 weeks, first 2 games for them. And it was a weird first half last week because they were parked on the sideline for a majority of it. They didn't get a lot of opportunities when they did. You know, they scored on one of them, and then on the other ones, some of them ran short. But once they got to the second half, they made some adjustments, and the defense stepped up. And when that offense got more opportunities, like the first play in the second half, Waterloo takes it, 60 yards for a touchdown. So he had 145 yards and 3 touchdowns last week. Casau, he had a rushing touchdown towards the end of the game. But the quarterback in McGorry has been impressive to me. And, they're going to work the quick game. If you were going to back off of them, they'll just take what you give. And then they're going to take some shots off of play action down the field. And it was very successful for them, especially, again, in the first half, it was that first touchdown. In the second half, again, because of the teams are going to be really forced to try to stop W, you're going to get opportunities to take shots down the field. And they were successful at it. So to me, that first one is it. On offense, get those into those condensed formations because that's what Carmel does best. Condense the defense, shift to it, motion to it, make sure that defense can line up correctly because teams have proven they cannot, and get W out in space. And he can find a hole, and all he needs is a small crease. He hits it hard, and it generates a lot of yardage. That's kind of mine on offense. Defensively, listen, the key is Mamaroneck's quarterback. That is the key. He is like an additional running back for them. He's not going to blow you away with his 40 time, but he's a big guy, runs with some power. And so to me, force these Mamaroneck running backs who haven't been a proven commodity yet, to kind of carry the load for this team. Don't give up the big pass play. At times we've seen that, right? In the first half, they were giving up some big pass plays. So if Carmel can just avoid the big pass plays and let them nickel and dime all the way down the field, prove that they can do that for 4 quarters. That's going to be the big thing for me on Carmel. Matchup I want to talk about, Mars, and I'll let you speak on Carmel. This Mamaroneck offensive line versus that Carmel defensive front 7. That's kind of the big one for me.
Yeah, I feel like Carmel's big question mark for me is going to be their defense, right? Which defense is going to show up? Is it going to be a defense that's going to kind of slow down an offense and kind of just get their guys back on the field? Because I can guarantee you if a defense kind of is shored up and really just gets the offense more opportunities, then this game will be over by halftime, right? But the question is going to be like, what type of defense are we getting here? Are we getting a bend but don't break defense? Or are we going to get a defense that kind of just says, all right, well, yeah, you'll score, but then our offense will just score back in a few minutes. So, what is it going to be? Like, especially because Mamaroneck has the ability to score a lot of points too, and they have a lot of weapons on the offensive side that can really make a lot of plays. So it's going to be a question of which defense is going to show up, right? Is it going to be a defense that's going to step up or not?
Yeah. So now what I'm going to do is let's do a little bit of film. So one of these games, I wanted to show film of both offenses. We'll show just a couple clips. So let me pull up and make sure everything. Mars, let me know if you see the screen.
Yeah, I can see it. You're all good.
Perfect. All right, so I want to start with the road team. And again, we're only going to show 2 clips because, we can't do full film breakdowns, but we want to bring something new for you guys. And again, the focus to me is on Mamaroneck and on the quarterback, excuse me. And again, they like to run the hurry-up offense. They like to check out of it. They're going to see how you line up versus their spread looks. And you can see here, they're 2-by-2. And North Rockland last week, this is a light box. And what that means is Again, you can't see there's one safety off the screen. They got 5 guys, and I guess you can count this number 6 guy as a hanger versus, again, 5. And the quarterback you have to include as a runner, right? Because he's a big part of their running game. So you got 7 versus 6. And that means, hey, you have an advantage here. So they're going to try to run the ball, right? You look like you got lock man, you got 2 high safeties. You can run the ball here. And that's what they got to do. And if Mamaroneck's offensive line, if they want to be contenders, you're going to be up against some serious defensive lines, and you got to win these one-on-one matchups. And so they're going to run a quarterback counter. They're going to fake to the back. You got these linemen pulling right here. And again, just keeping your feet. Now, I don't love that, again, the defensive tackle fell. Someone came off him way too early. So that's not good. But I love that these guys pulling. Look at them lock on. I love that they're getting to the second level. And you can see a lane being created here. And this is the kind of wins that this offensive line, I mean, they got to bury dudes. These offensive line got to move these big defensive fronts. They got to win their one-on-one matchups and open up lanes for that quarterback who this is a big focal point of their team, right? If you get a light box, we're going to run it with Jacobson. And they got to win these matchups. Now again, you'll come out again with a spread look. And look at the front. They're a little bit different, right? Now it's not a light box. So you got 4, you got 6, and I guess if you want to include the hanger right here, that's 7. You're kind of even. You have 1 high safety. The big thing for Jacobson is you're going to get some man coverage. You're going to get some cover 3 versus Carmel. You have to be able to make the proper read and deliver with proper timing. And turnovers can be absolute killer. This is an example of good timing. Again, you're going to get a little bit of play fake to try to draw these linebackers a little bit in, but you got to make the correct read, right? So you can see right here. The question is always going to be when quarterbacks are reading, are they going to be in a cover 3? Are they going to be man free, right? A good indicator is sometimes not just the flat guy who he sits, but these corners who are opening up their hips, right? They're not playing man coverage on the outside guy. They're looking to get some depth here. So okay, they're probably in a cover 3 look. Now, this is the option that the quarterback's going with because this guy's going to be sitting in this hook to curl zone, but that safety's in the middle of the field. So if you wait on this throw, it could be picked off, or you can get your wide receiver's head blown off, right? So shows good timing. Good read, good timing. Let him deliver it right over the middle, and it takes a big hit, holds on to the ball. But the timing there, if it was a little bit off, the corner can make a play or the safety can make a play on it. So again, nice timing. These are the kind of plays that are going to have to be consistent against Carmel if they want to win. Next, let's talk about Carmel. And you can see, again, pulled up here, they got 2 receivers. They had a tight end to the left. They're motioning this receiver to get into trips. And they're going to use motions and shifts. This is 3rd down and medium. And you have to line up correctly. You have to communicate with each other. And they want to take advantage if you don't. And so as this play runs, you're going to see, they're going to give you a run look. You're going to have this guard and tackle pulling. I'm guessing they could hand it off. I'm not sure if this is a call by the coach on when to throw it or a read by the quarterback. But if you don't motion and if you don't communicate, they're going to try to take advantage of it. Now, as this play gets going, this kind of run-pass option, he fakes it right here. And again, not sure if it's just directly called. He could have probably handed it off because the defensive end, stayed. But I love the athleticism. He could burn that guy anyway, even though if it was the incorrect read. But as you can see, when they do that trips here, and they're running a post, a wheel, and an out, this safety's coming over on that motion. And now this corner is kind of sitting on his back. He's sitting on his heels right now. He kind of went with the post. He's sitting on his heels, and that means this wheel is going to be wide open. Quarterback reads it. Again, throwing it off balance. Look at him show enough of that arm strength to get over. Because you don't communicate, right? Because you don't line up with their motions, Carmel takes advantage of that. So that's off of the play action. But they also have this guy in the backfield, this running back, who I call a fixer. Because, again, even when things look like, hey, they got it bottled up, he fixes things, right? He makes it look like an absolute perfect call. And they'll do this. They'll give you these condensed formations. You've seen this Carmel for years now. And look on the defensive side, Mars. You have 2 high safeties here. There's something off. They needed another man to kind of roll up here. There's all these condensed formations. So again, they want to see, do you line up correctly? They want to get these defenses condensed and then pitch it out and just give W an opportunity. Because actually, when you look at this, it looks like the defense on the outside and then contain, they got this kind of covered. Yeah, he's got a head of steam. It probably could be 4, 5, 6 yards. But he tests your entire defense. He tests these back guys right here. Are they running all the way through? Because if he just has a slight lane, like you're seeing right here, watch him get north and south. and it's see you later. He gets to that second level. There's not many people that can slow him down. Well, Morris, let me just take that off there. I'm going to let you choose, since I gave a nice little soliloquy there about both offenses. Who do you have winning and why?
Well, it's kind of interesting because now the question's thrown back at me, and which team, am I going to go against Carmel? Am I going to go against Mamaroneck? Because both teams I picked against them in the previous week, and they both burned me, right? So is it am I going to learn my lesson with either one? I mean, the question is going to be, Mamaroneck has proven me wrong, right? They have showed that they can move the ball, right? I think their defense is probably going to be their better asset right now. I mean, their defensive of points allowed is third in Section 1 AA right now. Offensively, they've struggled in the first few weeks, and just last week we saw their defense really carry the team and really gave them more opportunities, and that's what they capitalized on. And it's almost like a mirroring, right? Carmel then has the opposite effect, right? Their offense has been high-powered. They've scored probably more points than I've seen them score in a long time. Their defense, on the other hand, is kind of like the opposite. It's like they've let up more points than I've seen them give up in a long time as well. It's almost like this is almost like a perfect matchup of the best offense versus a top defense, right? And I feel like it's going to be which will break, right? And I feel like when I'm looking at this situation, Carmel went into suffering and won. It's a tough situation, some really good athletes, and they pulled it off. And they made memes on me for it. And I feel like because they are at home, it's going to give them that advantage. I think Carmel's going to win this game. I know it's going to be close. I mean, granted, I could be completely wrong here, but I think it's going to be a close game. And I feel like because of the fact that this, Mamaroneck defense is going to be tough, they could be scrappy, and this Carmel defense is going to struggle maybe a little bit. But I feel like the offense of Carmel is going to be just as high-powered as before. They're going to take advantage of any mishaps, as you just showed on film, and I think they're going to win this game. So I'm going to go with Carmel.
Mamaroneck has to do a few things offensively. They haven't been consistent. I'm not going to say they're struggle, but last week they showed that consistency, winning on third down, controlling the football. They're going to have to hit a couple big plays in this one if they're going to win, especially guys like Jack Davidson. The focus is going to be on their quarterback. Obviously, for important reasons, he's so important in the run game, so important in the pass game. But this offensive line, to me, is going to dictate whether Mamaroneck wins or not. When you look at Carmel, they've been really good offensively. They can throw the ball. They can run the ball with Wurlu. Defensively, they have given up some big plays. So that's going to be the big key, like you just said. At home, with the crazies going nuts, can Mamaroneck go on the road and win in this kind of environment? They were home versus North Rockland when they won. Can they go on the road and do this now? I don't think they can. I'm going to go with Carmel. I think, again, the offense versus the Mamaroneck's defense is going to be a real slugfest, but I think Carmel's defense is going to step up this week, and it's going to make it difficult for Mamaroneck to hold on to the ball as long as they did last week. So for that, I'm going to go with Carmel. All right, let's move now. As I take this off, we're going to go to A. And I have the schedule posted up in A. Again, guys, make sure you guys do the votes and the poll. Let us know who you think is going to win. I haven't even checked. What is the latest? 58% has me, 42%. It's actually looking a little better for you, Mars. Let us know in the comments who you think is going to win. Also, any questions that you guys have, we'll answer them at the end.
I think there's going to be a new awakening when the picks finally go my way, and I think all those people who voted for me are going to finally get that.
We shall see. There. Yeah, we shall see. Let us know in the chat who is voting this way so I can ban you forever. But let's continue with A, Mars. First matchup I want to talk about is Harrison at Clarkstown North. Harrison is 2-1. Clarkstown North is 1-2. And when I look at this matchup, Harrison won 21-6 versus Nyack last year. Clarkstown North last week. Clarkstown North lost 43-6 at Rye. Clarkstown North offensively, they've shown that they can move the ball. They're fourth in points scored so far this season. It all focuses on running the football, especially with their quarterback in Kavanaugh, who had a long rushing touchdown last week. The question that I have is defensively. Harrison, without Joe Krupe, is a huge loss, breaking his foot. There's no replacing him. He is one of the best players in the class. but it's going to be a group effort. And I think Harrison can take advantage of running the football against the Clarkstown North defense that's ranked 13th out of 13 teams in points allowed. And it's going to be guys like Lanza that had over 100 yards and 2 touchdowns, Badner, Ulsey. I mean, they rushed over 200 yards last week. That has to continue this time. Defensively, they've still been strong. This is the 5th ranked defense in points allowed. Stopping the run is going to be super important. I think Harrison wins on the road this week. I'm going Harrison.
I feel like it's really tough when you start getting some injuries. It really does kind of really shock a team. And Harrison, numbers wise, is similar to last year. And obviously every injury can matter. And obviously with Krupe being hurt, it's even bigger, right? And so I'm still going to go with Harrison, mainly because I know that Clarkstown North defensive points in the entire class is the last, and I think that has a lot to do with the fact that the last game was 43-6.
They've allowed 40. They've allowed 40 in back-to-back weeks.
Yeah, so I feel like it's just been rough, and I feel like I don't think they'll have the same struggle. Like I don't think it'll be a 3 straight 40+ game. I really doubt it. But I think Harrison's going to win. I feel like they'll be able to control the line of scrimmage, and I feel like they'll be able to, really develop the run. And I feel like they'll win on the road this time. So I'll go with Harrison.
Let's talk about the next matchup, and this is a and Hudson Valley Football League crossover big rivalry game. Mars, we have Lakeland 0-3 at Walter Panis, who's 1-1. These two teams are big rivals. And when you look again, these teams have played each other 19 times since 2004, with Lakeland, winning 14 of them. So, but when you look at Lakeland, they lost 35-7 at Yorktown. Walter Panis lost 34-14 at Greeley. This is another throw the records out of the window type game. Again, big rivalry game. Lakeland has really struggled offensively. They've scored 2 offensive touchdowns in 3 games. So definitely, a struggle there. When you look at Walter Panis, they showed that they can move the ball. Their quarterback in Ramos had 2 touchdowns last week. Jack Doherty was making plays. Number 21, I'm not sure, again, looking for most up-to-date roster, but I saw number 21 making some plays too, but turnovers were a killer. Now, to me, I do think Lakeland defensively is going to give Walter Panis some trouble. I think Lakeland is going to win this game, Mars. They have won 5 straight in this matchup. I think this offense has really, again, you're running into Yorktown, you're running into Clarkstown South. I think they're going to have a little bit easier time this time week moving the football. So to me, I'm going to go with Lakeland. Look for guys like Kyle Ronk and Nick Oliva to make some plays. But I think it's going to be a tight game, but I'm going to go with Lakeland in a tight one.
Yeah, I feel like I'm also gonna go with Lakeland. I know this is a big time rivalry game, so I feel like it's gonna get tight automatically just for that reason. But I do agree with you. I feel like Lakeland has had some struggles offensively and same thing defensively as well. And I feel like they kind of gonna just slow it down, right? I feel like they're gonna go with what works with them. It's gonna be a battle, but I'm gonna go with Lakeland here to win against their rival.
All right, let's go to the next matchup. Another league matchup. We have Fox Lane 1-1 at Somers. That's 3-0. Interesting one for me. Fox Lane, they won 18-13 versus a tough Eastchester team, and Somers won 42-20 at Mayapack. And that game was close for 2 quarters and 4 minutes, and then Somers exploded. But when I look at this game, I'm going to start. I'm going to start with Somers because there's major expectations. They go back at home. This offense is really good, and it really, they're the number 2 offense out of the 13 teams in A, in points scored. In the beginning of the game, they seemed off again, right? Similar to what I saw against Yorktown, something wasn't, it wasn't clicking. They made a couple big pass plays, one to Palazzolo, who is just tremendous. But then in the second half, they were like, we're going to run the football. We're going to run with our quarterback Iglesias. We're going to run with Kelly, who had 3 rushing touchdowns. And then if they're going to, if teams want to play man-to-man on Palazzolo, then we'll make them pay. And that's what they did. And this offensive line was key in the second half. They need to continue that into this game because, offensively, they can move the ball everywhere. Defensively, for Somers, is where I was even more disappointed. I thought they were bad tackling, and I have a lot of respect for Somers. Obviously, you win how many state titles, you got to play defense. And I thought last week they did not tackle well at all. Gave up way too many big pass plays because they didn't tackle in space, they didn't rally. And so I'm expecting them to rebound big time. Fox Lane, at times offensively, has struggled. And I think, again, they're going to have to make some big plays in the pass game because I think Somers is going to try to take away DeClon Connors. They have some studs on the outside at the receiver spot. They're going to have to make plays if they have a chance to win this one. defensively, Fox Lane, they forced 4 turnovers. If they can force that kind of game, this game will be close, but I'm going to go with Somers. I think it's close early, but then Somers' defense really steps up, and this offense makes some big plays, and they end up pulling away after the half. I'm going Somers.
Yeah, I picked Mapac last week against Somers, and I kind of told the tale of, I think Somers is going to start out really slow, and Mapac will take advantage of it, and they'll kind of have that lead.
And you were right. You were right for 2 quarters and 4 minutes.
For 2 quarters and 4 minutes, and I felt like it played exactly the way I foretold. But then once that second half really started, it was downhill from there. And I feel like that's kind of be how this game I think is going to start the same way. You already mentioned it. I feel like it's going to be slow again, and then Somers is going to realize that, hey, you know what? I think we're Somers. I think we'll do what we do best, and I think they're going to start running downhill, targeting their best players, making some plays on special teams, and I also think Somers is going to win at home. I feel like when they play at home, it's a little different. Playing away, they've sometimes struggled to kind of get the momentum on their side, so I'm going to go with Somers here.
Let's go to the next game, another big rivalry game in the A-League, and that is John Jay Cross River, who's 1-2 at Yorktown, who is 2-1. And these teams have split the series, Mars. They're 7-7 versus each other, but Yorktown has won the last 2 matchups. And John Jay Cross River last week, they lost 21-0 versus Brewster, and Yorktown won 35-7 versus Lakeland. And when I look again at this game, rivalry game, listen, I've been impressed with Yorktown. They're number 3 in points scored. We know about that going in. We thought this offense was going to be pretty good. We talked about it on the team preview. They have quarterback Gonzalez, who had 3 touchdowns last week. Galante has been so much a surprise, but he has really exploded into stardom to start the season. He had 2 touchdowns. One of them as a ridiculous punt return. And I think they're going to be able to run the ball. This offensive line is physical. They're not huge, but they are physical. Look for for Hunter and Bowen to make a lot of big plays, but it's defensively. This is the number 2 defense in A in points allowed. They have allowed 1 offensive touchdown in 3 straight games, just 1, right? So they've had 3 total touchdowns. I think, again, they got to get pressure on John Jay Cross River's quarterback because they're going to be throwing it a lot. And they were uncomfortable last week. They faced a lot of pressure. The timing was off. And look for Yorktown to try to generate that pressure to, again, keep the quarterback off balance. I'm going to go with Yorktown. John Jay Cross River could not get a lot of going offensively, and defensively gave up a lot of rush yards. So I'm looking for Yorktown to probably take advantage of that. I'm going Yorktown.
I think I'm also going to agree with you because I feel like Yorktown right now is one of the top tier teams in A right now, and they've been playing consistently. Their defense has been phenomenal. They are top 3 in scoring, and I feel like they just have the momentum on their side to playing at home. And I feel like John Jay Cross River has to sort of kind of find themselves. I feel like they need to really get some movement up front because they're they have a lot of skilled players. They have a lot of speed, but they're not really getting a lot of push from the offensive line. I feel like if once that happens, then you're going to see a lot more offensive efficiency, right? But it's not just offense, it's going to be defense as well. And I feel like since the beginning of the season, they've struggled. So I feel like Yorktown has that advantage, both sides of the ball, and I feel like they're going to win here.
Yeah. Another really interesting matchup. This is probably one of the best matchups that's not talked about a lot, and that's Clarkstown South 2-1 at Eastchester, who's also 2-1. Clarkstown South, they won 10-6 at Ossining. Eastchester lost a heartbreaker 18-13 at Fox Lane. Another very interesting matchup, and 2 offenses, Mars. Nothing gives me more agita than I see teams who, turn the ball over. And that's what both these offenses did last week. And so going into this week, it puts a lump in my throat if I was a coach because Clarkstown South, they did not score an offensive touchdown last week. They won on a kick return in the second half, scoring. It was the only touchdown that they got. They moved the ball, but they had 4 turnovers for Clarkstown South, and that was a big issue last year that cost them games. Now, they escaped last week. That can't continue. And when I look at Eastchester, they also had 4 turnovers, 1 at the end of the half when they were, moving the football, 1 at the end of the game to lose the game. I mean, you got to protect the football. Those were devastating turnovers for both teams. And Clarkstown South, again, Van Eaton had over 100 yards rushing. Jake Tito, we know, he had over 100 yards receiving. I think that Clarkstown South can get some big pass plays. Eastchester's defense is very good. They're number 3 in points allowed, but they have given up some big pass plays in the passing game. And Clarkstown South can take advantage with some of those skill guys. Offensively, they can run the football with Ciafone and Martucci. But I do think they've turned the ball over too much. And I think it continues this time around. Clarkstown South defense is also very strong. They're led by Kyle Sparing. have to make some defensive plays. This is going to be a tough day. If they can win on the road at Eastchester, who I think it's their homecoming, I'm going to go with Clarkstown South in a tight game down to the wire. I think they get one more turnover. They force one more turnover than Eastchester's defense can, and Clarkstown South wins it.
Yeah, so this has definitely been one of the tough games, in my opinion, just because you had two teams that had turnovers. Both teams' defensive have been playing very well, and I feel like it's going to be about momentum and what you're fighting for at this point. I feel like
both are fighting for playoff. This is a big playoff implicating game.
I agree with you, and I feel like because they're both fighting for this, but Eastchester is at home, homecoming. I feel like they have the advantage. I know that the big issue defensively is about giving up those big plays, right? But the question is going to be, can they limit those big plays? And if they do, then I feel like they will have that advantage. I'm going to go with Eastchester to kind of use that momentum, playing at home, homecoming, everything on their side right now, and I feel like that's going to push them to that victory. So I'm going to go with Eastchester here.
Let's go to the next matchup, another league matchup. We have Brewster 2-1 and Mahopac, who's 2-1. And looking at these two teams, interesting is the word I'm going to use, because Brewster, they won 21-0 at John J. Cross River on John J. Cross River's homecoming. And Mahopac lost 42-20 versus Somers at home, where again in the first two quarters and 4 minutes, they were playing very strong. And when I look at this game, I'm going to go with Mahopac, and I'm going to tell you why. Because offensively, I think they have one of the top offensive lines out of the A and AA schools. I think they're up there with the best offensive line in A. They are big, they are powerful, and they can run the football. And they don't do a lot of complicated things. They come out in tight end. I mean, I showed the play that they practically used to score a 60-yard touchdown at the start of the half last week. And they'll line up and say, if you can line up and play smart gap responsible football, and this offensive line is going to push you around and get guys like Maskell and Clifford into space. And then, take some shots in the passing game. It's not complicated what they're doing, but are you big and strong enough to stop it? Now, I look on the other side. Brewster, we talk about a lot of stats here. Brewster's number 1 in defense and points allowed. Now, is it about who they played? We're going to find out. I think that's the big test here. Can this defense, who had 2 shutouts, can they line up, defend the run, and force Mahopac into second and third and long? Can they do that on a consistent basis and get this defensive line to create some pressure? I don't think so. And the Brewster offense is 11 out of 13 in points scored. And that's kind of the bigger concern to me. Where are they going to generate those big plays offensively? At times, last week they were able to run the ball, but they were bigger than John Jay. They won't be this week. And I'll give you one more stat on why I have Mahopac at home. Fans are going crazy. Mahopac is 5-0 versus Brewster. And that's, Brewster, that's the most losses to a team without a win for Brewster since 2004. Right? So that's the most losses they suffered to a Section 1 team without one win since 2004. I'm going to go Mahopac, Mars. But I tell you what, if Brewster, this is a game if we're going to see Brewster's real. Because if they can win on the road with the Maniacs going crazy, then we know Brewster is serious. I just think Mahopac's going to win this one.
Yeah, for me, I feel like it's definitely going to be that a big guy showcase, right? This is going to be that run heavy downhill. It's going to be one of the fastest games you probably have ever watched of the year, right? And both teams are going to be trying to just run each other over, right? And I agree with you. I feel like Brewster is looking to try to show what they're capable of, and the question is, are they real or not? And it's going to be about that. How can they withstand these behemoths up front, right? And we said this a bunch of times before. I don't know what's in the water in Mahopac. They're bigger.
They were as big as Somers, yeah.
Big as Somers, and that was really what Mahopac had relied on so heavily, was that they were the biggest team in A, and we're gonna just run over you until you stop us. And for the first half and 4 minutes, were struggling, right? And so then they realized we got to change it up, and they did. But the question is, can Brewster do that? I don't know, and I don't think they will. I picked Mahopac last week against Somers because I had a feeling this size is going to be difficult to match, and I was right for, like I said before, 2 quarters and 4 minutes.
Not the end result, but
not the end result, but for 2 quarters and 4 minutes, it was close. But I will say this: I think Mahopac is going to win this game. They're playing at home. It's not easy to play Mahopac at home, and they're going to just be really simple and just play some downhill football. And
listen, I love when teams can play good defense, and Brewster coming in with the number 1 defense. But to me, again, this is such a big test for Brewster. Are they going to take that next step? There's times that Brewster had strong teams, but they run into, again, you're 0-5 versus Mahopac. Can you win on the road, hostile environment? This is that kind of big test. I'm in a see it to believe it right now mode when it comes to Brewster. All right, let's go to the final A matchup, and that is Rye, who's 3-0, at Nyack, who's 0-3. And Rye won 43-6 versus Clarkstown North. Nyack lost 21-6 at Harrison. And I'm going to just start at this. Nyack is not as bad as 0-3. They're a talented team. They've had a brutal start to the schedule. And offensively, they can run the ball with Claremont, and they take some big shots down the field with their quarterback in Williams. They have a couple wide receivers who can make plays, Bierfeld, Moran. But penalties have been absolute brutal for them. And defensively, they can run sideline to sideline. They're the 6th ranked defense out of the 13 teams. But if you can run the ball, that's where they've struggled, right? If you can run the ball on them. And that's what I think Rye, you look at Rye, Mars. They become my number 1 team in A when we did our rankings earlier in the week for our Patreon. I moved them up because they're playing the best football right now out of all the teams. This is the number 1 offense in points scored. Quarterback Boo Miller, 300 yards again, 4 touchdowns. He's putting up video game numbers. These is video game numbers he's putting up. And he's got weapons all over the place. Giuliano, we know. Kessner are household names, but guys like Fenton, Schumacher, Ramachandran. They got guys who can make plays and have made plays at various times. And Nyack has really struggled to stop the run. I think this is a game where we're seeing a lot of Boo Miller throwing. You could see some Boo Miller running and some Giuliano running in this game, and this offensive line making plays. Defensively, they're facing a lot of speed. If they can prevent big plays, force Nyack to be disciplined and not have those penalties, not have those back-breaking mistakes. Guys like, again, Wilmart, Sass, Bergery, Steinman, multiple guys, including some of those offensive guys, have made plays on both sides of the ball. Too much. To me, I'm going Rye. I think they're playing the best football right now in A.
Yeah, I feel like for Rye, I think as an all-around team, they are probably my number 1 team currently, mainly because of the fact that they're both offensively and defensively, they've just been feeling like they're unstoppable, right?
Yeah.
They feel like they've done everything right, and I haven't really seen much mistakes. Like a lot of the teams in A that you can say, hey, they do really good things here, then they struggle somewhere else, or they've shown weaknesses in some areas. But Rye so far has not shown a single weakness, and I feel like a lot of that has to do with Boo Miller. He has been, like you said before, putting up, his QBR rating is phenomenal, right? It's been. I want to get the.
I don't even know what the
ESPN stats. Get the next gen stats on that, because I just don't. I don't know where else the bad things. You can't really say anything bad, right? He's putting up like Josh Allen numbers right now, and it's kind of just like, hey. He's taking control, right? And it's not just him. There's so many guys on this team that are just loaded with talent. And I feel like because of that, and you're right, Nyack is not the record does not show the type of talented team they are, because they have a lot of speed, they have a lot of aggressiveness, and they can make plays. It's just right now they're getting thrown into the gauntlet. They've had a lot of mistakes.
They've in the gauntlet.
They had the gauntlet, and they're just making mistakes with penalties, and it's causing them to get in bad situations, and they just can't finish drives, and they can't get these W's. So I'm going to go with Rye. They have been super consistent. They haven't had mistakes yet. Could I see Nyack have some big plays? Sure. But I don't really think that Rye is going to let up anything too big that they would lose the game. So I'm going to go with Rye here to win this game.
All right. Next up, let's go now to B. And unfortunately, I see, I'm going to move this up just a little bit because I see Mars's camera is
blocking it.
Mars's camera. We'll get to it. There's so many games, but sorry about that, Sleepy Hollow. We don't mean it negatively, but we'll get to that game. But let's start off with the first one because I don't want to screw up everything. Let's get to the first one, and this is a BC crossover, and that is a non-league game. We have Valhalla, who's 2-0 at the Briarcliff Hamilton football program, who's 2-1. An interesting game for me. And, Valhalla has kind of been one of those surprise teams. They won 28-7 at Haldane. Briarcliff Hamilton football program won 24-14 at Irvington. And when I was trying to pick this game, I had some hesitation because Briarcliff Hamilton football program, Mars, offensively, they've moved the ball. They're 4th out of the 15 teams in B in points scored, and it's a balanced attack. Their quarterback Vincent had 2 touchdowns last week. Solari has been pretty impressive, and they got Salage and Bursch as weapons. And this offensive line has been pretty solid. But the question I have is defensively, can they stop the run? Now, the last 2 games they've allowed 14 or less points, but Valhalla is very physical, and I am going to go with Valhalla. They've allowed 1 offensive touchdown in 2 games, Mars. They've allowed less than 200 yards, I think, in both. So to me, this has been a physical, aggressive defense. I think they're going to run the ball, try to keep that balanced Briarcliff Hamilton football offense on the sideline, give them less possessions. Luke Foyset has been tremendous. He's had over 200 yards and 6 touchdowns the last 2 games, but he's not alone. Ratty, Bergery. I'm going to go with Valhalla here, Mars. I think they're one of the surprise teams this year. They've proven me wrong a couple times, and I'm not going to make that same mistake. I think Valhalla wins on the road.
Yeah, see, I think Valhalla has been very consistent. They've been very surprising with how efficient they have been overall. With defensively, they've just been lights out, right? And I feel like that has been really the backbone of this team. And I feel like Valhalla is going to have that advantage. But offensively, they have been really impressive too. And I feel like every time they've gone on the field, they made some plays, they made some moves. So I'm also going to go with Valhalla to win this game. Even though nothing against Briarcliff Hamilton football team, I feel like they offensively they've done a great job. I just think Valhalla's defense and offense combination, they've just been very surprising, and I feel like they're going to win this game.
Let's go to the next one. Another interesting, I think every week you're going to see interesting matchups. And this one's Irvington 1-1 at Hen Hud, who's 1-2. And Irvington, they lost 24-14 at Briarcliff. Versus Briarcliff, excuse me, like I just mentioned before. Hen Hud, they lost 29-6 at Sleepy Hollow. And looking at this game, again, Hen Hud's got some explosive players. They can move the ball. They're 5th in points scored in B. Last week was very disappointing, and this offensive line needs to bring that physicality this week. They got to run the ball better. And their running back in Parkes, he can make plays in the running game, in the passing game. Their quarterback in Abowd he's a dual threat guy. And when I look at Irvington, they made big plays last week, but they struggled to run the ball, and they had some terrible penalties. I remember one of them was a crackback block that brought back a touchdown. So, their quarterback, Callahan, can make some plays. I saw their wide receiver, Kim, make plays. Their running back, Jared, who is a big kid, I think really tall. He's like 6'3", 6'4", but they struggled to run the ball. And going on the road at Hen Hud, I think, again, defensively, I've been very disappointed in Hen Hud. They're 14th in points allowed. But being at home, I think this defense responds. I think they make enough plays defensively. Offensively, you're going to see some big plays by Parkes. I'm going to go with Hen Hud at home.
This was definitely tough for me, mainly because I feel like both these teams are scrappy, right? And they have the, I guess you say, the ability to make big plays. They both have some athletes that really are impressive. I'm really looking at Irvington's defense to be kind of that backbone, right? And I feel like you have a defense that's 4 out of the 15 teams with points allowed, and then for Hen Hud, 5 of the 15 points scored. That's going to be the main matchup today. Not today, but for this game is that day. In that day. And so I feel like, with that being said, I feel like I'm actually going to go with Irvington here. I feel like Hen Hud, I feel like it really just depends on how many mistakes Irvington makes, especially with penalties. Like they've had the ability to really move the ball, but the penalties kept getting them in the back or really behind the line. It just causes them to have to struggle. So if they can limit mistakes like that, then I think they should be able to move the ball a little bit more efficiently. Their defense is their backbone. I feel like that will be kind of the I guess you would say, the way in which they can stop Hen Hud from scoring. So I'm going to go with Irvington. Next
up in league matchup, we have Nanuet 1-1 at Pelham, who's 2-1. Nanuet lost a really close game, 21-20 versus Ardsley. Pelham got blown out, 34-7 at Bronxville. So both teams trying to respond, and this to me is a very good game. Both are run-first teams. Both at times struggled running last week. Pelham obviously, they got down a lot, had to try to throw the ball. Romano had a really nice touchdown. He got injured when I was watching the game. Don't know what his status is, right? We don't get injury reports. And he's a huge player for them on both sides of the ball. So without him, that would be a tough loss. But I do think Pelham will be able to run the ball a little bit more. They have a couple different backs who can make plays. They put in their quarterbacks who can run out of the spread, out of heavy looks. I think they try to go into spread and try to run the ball a little bit more. Nanuet's had a strong defense, but last week, Mars, they gave up over 250 yards rushing. To me, I think Pelham takes advantage of that. Now, Nanuet, they pass the ball a little bit better. I mean, Patterson had 2 passing touchdowns, one to Flowers, one to Vin Duffy. They have a couple backs, but they're going to, again, they're a run-first team. I think Pelham defensively got a little embarrassed defending the run last week. I think they step up. At home, I think Pelham is going to win this game, Mars.
Yeah, see, I was really stuck on this one, mainly because I agree with you. I feel like Pelham had a really rough game last week, and I feel like they kind of are itching for some of that, some bounce back, right, from their team overall. And I feel like they struggled against Bronxville, but I don't think necessarily they are a struggle all year long. And I feel like up front is really going to be the question. And I feel like with that, I feel like Pelham has the advantage. I think Nanuet had a battle against Ardsley, but I feel like Pelham, I think up front has the advantage, which does help with them running the ball. They're not going to want to get embarrassed again. They're going to fight. They're going to be at home. Momentum's on their side. I'm going to go Pelham.
All right, next one up, we have Bronxville 2-0 at Byram Hills, who's 2-1. Bronxville, they were very impressive once again. They won 34-7 versus Pelham. Byram Hills won 28-0 versus Croton Harmon in a game that had to get forfeited at halftime. But let's talk about this. Listen, Byram Hills offensively, they had 4 rushing touchdowns last week by 3 different ball carriers. And, when Tyler Marscott, who's a tremendous player at the wide receiver spot, when he can't get going or they're trying to take him away, you need others to step up. And that's what they're going to have to do. It can't just be a one-man show versus a team like Bronxville. Now, they have to take shots with him. They have to get him in space. But it's these other guys and these guys up front. Can they establish the run game? Defensively, they forced 2 turnovers last week, but they're playing a much more physical team this week. And when I look at Bronxville, Mars, this is the number 1 offense in points scored in B, the number 1 defense in points allowed. That they're going to look, hey, let's take away Tyler Marscott and force other guys to beat us. And if they can get Byram Hills in 2nd, 3rd, and long, that's where trouble starts to brew. And that's what Bronxville has done the first couple weeks with the physicality of the D-line and the linebackers. Offensively, the combination of Patterson and Formato, Mars, have had 5 touchdowns last week. This offensive line and tight ends have been dominating. I don't think that Byram Hills is going to knock them off. I think Bronxville goes on the road. I think they run the ball pretty efficiently. And defensively, they might give up a couple big plays, but I think for the most part, I think Bronxville controls this game. I'm going Bronxville.
Yeah, I think I'm going to agree with you just because I think Bronxville is going to force some turnovers. They're going to get their offense back on the field. They've been very efficient offensively, and I feel like that's going to be what's the driving force. I feel like their defense has been stout, and I feel like they're going to just, like I said before, just win up front. And I feel like that's going to cause Byram Hills to have to be behind the sticks, and they're going to have to try to take some shots, and I just don't think they'll be able to do that. So I'm going to go with Bronxville.
Let's talk about a big rivalry game, and this is another B League matchup. We have Pleasantville 0-2 at Ardsley, who's 1-1. Pleasantville, they lost 7-3 versus Pearl River. Ardsley won 21-20 at Nanuet. And again, if you told me before the season that Pleasantville would start the year 0-2, I think you'd be crazy. And I think a lot of people feel that way. And I'm just going to say this, talking about both teams. Ardsley reestablished itself from the first week when they really struggled to run the ball efficiently. They got the running game going. Dulcine had over 200 yards rushing and a touchdown. The offensive line stepped up, and their quarterback Kaplan, he avoided those mistakes, and he had 2 rushing touchdowns last week, and that's why Ardsley won. The defense, yeah, they gave up some big pass plays. They have a strong defensive front 7. Look for them to, again, bail out to stop the run and force the Pleasantville passing game to keep them honest. And that's the big question here. I think Pleasantville's defense, they were out on the field a while last week, but they made enough big plays to give them an opportunity. And I saw guys make plays at each level. You have Fucillo, you have McPhee make plays, you have Sadao make plays, and even this secondary, I saw Reach get very involved in the run game. He had, 8 tackles, right? So to me, I think they really struggled to get the secondary to defend the run and the defensive line not to get pushed off the ball against Bronxville. They stepped up against a good Pearl River offense. I think you see that again. They're going to try to bail out to stop. The question I have is on offense. There was a lot of opportunities. They need to execute in the passing game more. Again, they averaged 5.4 yards a carry, Mars, and 4.8 yards a carry the last 2 weeks. They just need a little bit of a spark. Rotating quarterbacks, who is a new quarterback, not a new quarterback, same quarterback, it doesn't matter. You have to be able to, again, read the defense, take what the defense gives you, and just get comfortable and play football. That's what everyone feels so tight when Pleasantville's on offense. They need to loosen up a little bit. And on the road, in a tough environment, this is going to be an interesting one to me. I'm going to go with Pleasantville. I don't think they go 0-3. I think a lot of people have written them off. No question. Ardsley is a talented team. I have a lot of faith in Ardsley. They are at home. But this could be an opportunity for Pleasantville to hit some big pass plays because Ardsley has given up big pass plays. So, again, you have to start off with running the ball. I think that they'll hit some big pass plays for Pleasantville. This is going to be another low-scoring game, in my opinion. I'm going to go with Pleasantville. Mars, I know you're not choosing the game, but give me your thoughts on this one.
Yeah, I feel like the biggest thing is that, from looking at both perspectives, both these teams have had some struggles to start the year off. And obviously they are both trying to vie to stay consistent and try to get back on track. And Ardsley had one last week. Pleasantville had a really tough game last week. So it's going to be a tough trek for both teams. From Pleasantville's perspective, I feel like it's kind of like that mentality of adversity is going to come knocking on your door, and how do you react to that? Is it going to be are you going to cower down? Are you going to break down? Are you going to bounce back? Right? As much as Pearl River game was a battle, right, and everyone saw it was a defensive showcase, the question is going to be about how do they bounce back. And same thing with Ardsley. You had a really good game and you won in a close fashion, but what makes you what are you best at, and how are you going to capitalize on that? I feel like both these teams, they know what they need to do. It's about who's going to be more consistent, who's going to make less mistakes, and that's going to be the defining moment for both these teams. What do you do against adversity? Do you step up? Do you not? That's going to be the question.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to address a comment. We had Vin Ott. You guys are doing a great job. Keep it up. It was fun helping coach both of you way back when, and it's great to hear from you, Coach. I hope all is well with you. And yeah, he's one of the guys who really mentored both of us, and me specifically, one of the guys who helped train me, not just out on the football field, but in the weight room, that helped me become a better football player. So to me, much love for Coach, and I appreciate you guys watching, and appreciate all our supporters.
Yeah, much love.
As always.
Much love, man.
So I just want to give a quick shout out there. All right, let's keep it moving, Mars. Next up, another B matchup, league matchup. We have Edgemont 0-2 at Rhinebeck, who's 1-2. And again, to me, both teams coming off big losses, right? Edgemont lost 27-6 versus Tappan Zee. Rhinebeck lost 36-0 at Westlake. This is a tough one for me. I think Edgemont, who can at times be, the defense held strong last week. It was 14-0 through the through the third quarter, but they have turned the ball over a lot, and it has been absolute killer for them. And for Rhinebeck, I think they got one first down or didn't have a first down last week, Mars. So this offense needs to rebound. It can only go up from here. And because Rhinebeck is home, and because Edgemont has turned the ball over as much as it has, I think this defense will force some turnovers for Rhinebeck. And I am going to go with Rhinebeck at home. And again, both teams I think are somewhat even, but I'm going to go with the home team. Again, traveling on the road after getting embarrassed the way they did for Rhinebeck, I think they respond, and I think they win this game.
You're finally on the Rhinebeck train, Frank.
It's not finally. I chose them on one game.
I finally got you to jump on the train, and so I think Rhinebeck. Yes, I had to pick against you last week. It was a tough game, but I feel like that's in the past. It's about moving forward. It's about learning from the mistakes, and now I think that, like you said, Frank, I'm gonna go with Rhinebeck here. I feel like they're gonna bounce back. I feel like they're playing at home, get you more comfortable. They're gonna learn from the problems they've had, and now they're gonna start kind of being consistent, right? I feel like Rhinebeck is gonna win this game. I think Edgemont has some talent, but I think they just have too much turnovers, too many mistakes. I feel like they have to lessen that in order to keep this game close. I'm gonna go with Rhinebeck here.
All right, let's go next up. We have Sleepy Hollow, who's 1-1 at Croton Harmon, who's 0-2. Sleepy Hollow won 29-6 versus Hen Hud. Croton Harmon lost 28-0 at Byram Hills. Had to forfeit the game at halftime. And Mars, before I pick the game, I just want to address something because I did see something I was tagged online, and there was talk about the forfeiting and what does that mean. And I know some parents get upset about it. I saw some comments that, hey, the coaches should be ashamed of stuff. The coaches don't go into these games wanting to forfeit. You spend way too much time, effort, and you owe it to the kids to try to play a game. But when you suffer a bunch of injuries and when you're a smaller program, now you say underclassmen are playing, that's when you talk like juniors. When you're talking sophomores and freshmen playing, you're talking about practically pulling up JV kids to play in a varsity level. And sometimes it's very overwhelming. So I get it. It's an ugly situation. You hate when it gets to that point. You never want to see programs get to that point. I think it's terrible for football. But, I don't blame the coaches. This is an unfortunate situation, but I did want to address that because I did see that online and wanted to kind of give, again, I'm not shilling for any coach here. I'd like to tell it like it is, but in those kind of situations, it's not really the coach decision. It's kind of out of their hands at that point. But with that said, going into this, I don't know the status of these players, and I don't know the status, but Sleepy Hollow, Mars, we know about their running back in Richardson, who is a stud, but other players made plays for them, and that to me was the big indicator for Sleepy Hollow in their win. Their quarterback in Posh had 3 touchdowns, Mahood, Owens making plays, and this defense has been pretty solid for the first 2 games, Mars. They're number 5 in points allowed. With that, I think they go on the road. I think they win this game, Mars.
What's crazy? I think that first off, I'll address the same thing that you kind of did at the beginning, and you got to feel for this program that it's struggle, right? It's a struggle to be able when you have a small program and you got a lot of injuries, like that stuff happens. And I'm not going to go against the coaches for that because would you rather have a freshman go in there against a senior and then possibly get injured? I mean, I'd rather not have that happen. It's a really tough situation, but moving on from that, one thing I will say, one of the coolest things I saw this week was Barstool Sports came out and said, imagine you go into geometry class and you walk out and you see the horseman walking out.
The headless horseman. One of the coolest mascots.
Yeah, one of the coolest mascots that you have in the section. And the fact that Barstool recognizes that entrance is pretty wild. And I feel like Sleepy Hollow had a really good game last week, and they've really showed out with a lot of different offensive plays that really got them going. And I feel like defensively, they've really been impressive so far. So I feel like I'm going to go with Sleepy Hollow here. Going on the road, I feel like they're going to win this game. I feel like their offense is just going to continue to shine. I'm going to go with Sleepy Hollow.
All right, now let me get this out of here, and let's pull up our game of the week for B. We usually do about 3 game of the weeks, and this one is Westlake at Pearl River. Very, very interesting game. We have Westlake, who's 2-0, Pearl River, who is 2-0. 2-0, actually, no, Pearl River's 3-0. That's a mistake on my part. Yeah, Pearl River's 3-0. And Westlake, they won 36-0 versus Rhinebeck, like I mentioned before. Pearl River won 7-3 at Pleasantville. So that was a slugfest. And when we talk about these 2 teams, let's start with the road team in Westlake. They have been one of the big surprises for me because they had to replace a lot of kids, especially on the offensive side of the ball. But this is a team that's number 2 in points scored and number 2 defensively in points allowed. Now, defensively, I thought they'd be ahead of their offense, but things are breaking pretty even. And they are a very run-heavy team, obviously. The rush attack has been lethal. They had 5 guys score a touchdown last week, Mars. And it's multiple guys who can make plays. You got your quarterback in Langeza, who, to me, one of the big MVPs. Because, he was, when I spoke to Coach in the offseason, this was an athlete making the transition to the quarterback spot. They weren't sure how comfortable, he was going to be, but he was a very good athlete. And you know what? He looks pretty damn comfortable. He's making plays off of play action, off a rollout game. That's kind of big in their pass attack. And they have backs who have been really good. DiNapoli, Zino, Piazza. So that's going to be the big key for them on offense. The play action is going to be huge. I think taking shots down the field on early downs, winning those early downs, where you get into 2nd and 4, 2nd and 3, 3rd and 1. And then that's where opens the playbook off for that play action game where they can take some of those shots down the field. And defensively, it's all about stopping the run. I really like the way that these guys can run east and west. It feels like there's openings at times where teams try to run outside of them, but they close the gap very quickly, and they have multiple guys who can make plays. Mealy, Negrelli up front, Piazza, Barnett, Zino. They have the speed that they can run sideline to sideline, and they make it difficult if you're not running north and south quickly to get anything running the football. And then they get you in 2nd, 3rd, and long, and now the speed in the back end can make plays. So that's kind of the big thing for me on Westlake. Mars, thoughts on Westlake? They're playing up against a 2-quarterback system, but it all starts with the run game. If they can slow down the run, that's my second key. Mars, thoughts on Westlake before I move to Pearl River?
I think all around they've been very impressive. Obviously, with both their offense and defense being one of the top in B right now, and I feel like they have a lot of momentum on their side. But this is going to be the real test, right? Pearl River is one of the top teams in B right now, and the question is going to be like, are they for real for me? And I feel like they've had some really good showings. They had a good push up front. They've have a good run game. Their defense has been very aggressive. But now you have a lot of playmakers in Pearl River, a 2-quarterback system that has been very efficient. I mean, I
For
know
Pearl
last
River.
game it was
The 2 quarterback for Pearl River. I'm sorry if I didn't make that clear.
I meant more like they're facing a 2-quarterback system, right? And Pearl River that has been very efficient, right, up to this point. So now the question is going to be like, how do they handle that, right? I not saying they haven't had challenges, because they have. But I feel like Pearl River is a big time team, right? That has a lot of weapons, and I really want to see how this defense handles that. So, I'm really interested to see this game.
Yeah. And talking about Pearl River, I mean, this offense is number 3 in B in points scored, and it starts with their running back in Amundsen. He's had over 100 yards again last week. I think that's 3 games over 100 yards. So it starts with them. But how does this offensive line handle the speed and some of the size that Westlake has is a big question. And you mentioned the 2-quarterback system has worked for them. You know, Whalen is a little bit more quicker on his feet. He's a little bit smaller. Lanise is this big, towering figure who can really, take shots down the field. He can really deliver the football. So, both these teams, it starts with the run and then it's play action out of it. And then they'll do the quick stuff, right? They'll try to, if they think you're blitzing, they'll hike it and throw it to the sideline and let these receivers try to make plays for them. But for me, it's got to be north and south running. You're going to see, I'm going to bring up tape of both defenses, and both these defenses can run east and west. So if you're running sideline to sideline and you don't cut up the field quick, there's not much room. And so for me, my first key on offense is that Pearl River's got to get north and south running the football. The east and west is going to fail. And these quarterbacks, if they can get a running game going, that's when they can take the shots when Westlake tries to load the box and take those shots down the field. And defensively, again, winning the early down. Westlake thrives on running the football and play action out of that. And again, they have multiple backs, so you need to win early. If it's 2nd and 5, 2nd and 4, you're behind the sticks. If it's now 2nd and 8, now, again, Pearl River's got some defensive guys who can generate a lot of, they're fast off the line. And a guy that really stands out to me in Riley, but they have other guys like Davin at the linebacker spot, Guzman who can make plays, Graziano as an outside linebacker coming off the edge, Tabacco, Colaci at the defensive back spot. They have guys who can make plays on the defense, but they have to win those early downs. Those are my 2 keys, Mars. Thoughts on Pearl River and the matchup? I'm looking at the quarterbacks. Those are going to be the big ones. And Langeza on the Westlake side and the 2 quarterbacks over at Pearl River. Both running games are the talk of the town. Which quarterbacks can make enough plays in this one, to me, is a big difference. Thoughts on Pearl River?
Yeah, I feel like their defense was a bend but don't break defense, and they've several times that there were struggles to for Pleasantville to capitalize on getting in the red zone, and the defense stayed tough. I mean, there were some mistakes that were open, but it didn't crumble, right? Whether it was Pleasantville didn't capitalize on the mistakes or the defense didn't give up, right? Whatever it may be, the defense did step up when they needed to. And I feel like the question is going to be, can they slow down this Westlake rush offense and really force them to make the state mistakes? That's going to be the question I have for Pearl River.
All right. Let's do a little bit of film now, Mars. And I talked about defense, and I love me some defense. You love yourself some defense. So let's talk a little bit of defense here. And we're going to look at both defenses. Mars, can you see the screen?
Yeah.
Although it's a little bit smaller for whatever reason.
Yeah, you're all good.
Let me make it full screen for everybody. There we go. All right. So talking about defenses, and I mentioned before that I really like both defenses because they show a lot of team speed. And they got guys who can make plays in the front 7 and in the back end. And the first thing for Westlake, to me, they've shown the ability to stop the run very well, whether it's running inside or running outside. And teams that want to run outside, if you don't get north and south quickly, Westlake shows that it makes it hard to run on them. So you're going to see here, they got 2 DBs running about 9 to 10 yards. You see here the safety in the corner. So you're going to see Arsley, they're going to try to motion this guy and run a sweep right here, right? You can see on the screen. And as the play gets going, I want you to see how they're going to block up front. The initial hitting right here, right on the defensive end, on that first line to contain, Looks pretty good, right? I mean, they look like, hey, this is opening up here. But watch the speed. Watch the hustle that Westlake shows. I mean, watch this play develop, and all of a sudden now, the safety's flying up. Look at the linebacker coming from inside out. Look at that corner fight to the outside of that blocker to get contained. Mars, what looked to be something that opens up has closed very quickly. And this running back who's trying to make it to the numbers doesn't have a lot of space now. And now watch them swarm. Look at the big hit right there, forcing the fumble. Right? Ball is out. Westlake picks it up. And that's just, again, the hustle to get back to the ball. Shows a big hit on the sideline, and now it leads to a touchdown. I mean, I really like the way Westlake can run east and west. And when they stop the run, and you're getting to these second and third and longs, now you're going to see, again, the secondary, they could play in some man coverage. They got safeties who can key on the quarterback, and this is an example of it. They're going to, again, get a motion here, and really, on the bottom of the screen, I want you to focus in on. That's where they're man-to-man. But you see this middle safety who's going to be eyeing the quarterback. And they're going to take, again, opportunities to jump the ball. This is a man-free concept. He's going to read the quarterback's eyes. And you're going to see some pretty solid man coverage. They're going to run a slant and a post on the bottom. But I also like what the linebacker does here. Look at the linebacker opening up. He's not, again, he's opening up. He's looking to where his threats are. They take away that first read. Pretty good coverage from both guys. So that first read is taken. Now quarterback wants to go to the post. But because, again, he's scared about the, again, pretty good blocking up front, but he's going to his second read. He doesn't realize the safety's watching him from the man-free side. So the safety's jumping this route. Sees it. Again, both guys covered very well. Safety reads it, picks the ball off, and again, turnover. Westlake forces. And it's the speed of Westlake's defense that has been very impressive. They get you down second, third, and long, and then these secondary guys, these safeties can make plays on the ball. Now I go to the other side. And when I look at, again, Pearl River, they're not overly huge. They got some size, but these guys can get off the ball very quickly. And you can see Pleasantville in a heavy set. You got tight ends. You got extra backs. This is pretty much just a lead play with a direct snap to the running back. But what I want to focus on is, again, look at this Pearl River defensive line and the linebackers. They can run to the ball. So this is an overload to one side. Watch this defensive end. This is one of the more impressive players. Look at him undercut that. Look at him fight up the field, how quickly it is, and then finish that. I mean, you see that. Pearl River can get off the football. They show the speed. And again, they can finish. Another example. Again, this is just zone blocking up front. They're going to just do a pitch, right? Pitch with zone blocking up front. And when the team is like, hey, we really got to take care of these guys up front, and they start doubling, now it allows these linebackers to roam free. And they do a good job of finding themselves to the ball. And watch as this play gets up. Defensive end's going to take on two blocks. Look at the linebacker reading it right away. He's not waiting. He's attacking. Fights upfield. This is 3rd and 5. Boom. Sticks it right there. And again, they got guys at every level on Pearl River who can make plays in the running game. Get you into second and long. Get you into third and long. And then that's when trouble spells for the offense. All right, Mars. Who do you got winning and why?
Well, this is definitely a tough game. I mean, obviously this is our game of the week for obvious reasons, because both Westlake and Pearl River have shown some really great moments for both offense and defense. And I feel like Westlake has the grittiness and speed that can cause mayhem on defense, right? Especially because they love to run the ball. I feel like that's something that they pride themselves in being aggressive, right? And I feel like Pearl River had really a tough showing last week. Offensively, they have played a really good defense in Pleasantville, and they struggled really to score a lot of points. They made some big plays, but then they couldn't really capitalize on it. And so you're going to get a very similar defense in Westlake, and the question is going to be about how are you going to handle that going forward? Are you going to take more shots? Are you going to capitalize on those big plays? And I feel like I'm going to go with Pearl River. They're playing at home. They have they shown a really strong defensive front against the run. And as much as Westlake's going to throw some shade at me, I'm sure if this week, but I'm going to go with Pearl River. I feel like they have impressed me with their defensive ability, right? And I feel like that's what's going to give them a lot more opportunities on offense, and they have a lot of weapons. And I know that's going to be a showcase, a battle between Westlake's defense and Pro River's offense, but I feel like Pro River will win just slightly, right? They'll make enough big plays to get ahead, and they'll just kind of keep it that way for a good chunk of the game. I don't think it's going to be an offensive showcase. I think it's going to be a defensive showcase between both these strong defenses. I'm going to go Pro River.
I agree. I think it's going to be a defensive showcase. And again, Westlake has proven to me that they are a contender and beat, but they have to now go on the road. I don't think Pro River played its best game against Pleasantville, especially on the offensive side. They left some times that they've driven and came up short. And so they need to be better at that. And so to me, Westlake is a contender, but they have to go on the road. It's not easy to go to Pro River. Over that bridge it is tough. I'm going to go with Pro River. I think this is going to be a very close game, a low-scoring game. I think both teams are absolute contenders here, but I think Pro River makes enough plays in the passing game. I think they win it. All right. Let's go to now the C&D, and then we have the Hudson Valley Football League. Again, guys, appreciate you as always. If you haven't done so yet, make sure you hit that thumbs up and subscribe. Also, this is going to be posted on our channel. And so if you missed anything, you can go to the live tab and rewatch it. So anything missed, we have a comment that says, bet that. Well, we're going to see, right? So I always appreciate, it's always fun, with these little back and forths. I know they're watching. They've already quoted us once before. Never quote when we get it right, though. So I want to see the memes when we get things right. That's all I'm saying. But let's continue, guys. Always fun. Let's talk about a big rivalry as well. This is in the C League, Mars. We have Dobbs Ferry 2-1 at Woodlands, who's 1-2. And this is another big rivalry, big long-standing rivalry between these C schools. They played each other 17 times since 2004, with Dobbs Ferry winning 9 straight. They are 13-4. And Dobbs Ferry, they won 48-38 versus Morristown Beard in a non-league game. Woodlands lost 16-0 at Hastings, which is a little bit of a surprise to me. And offensively, they really struggled, Woodlands, last week, but they did score 20 points back-to-back before that. Quarterback Campbell and this pass attack, they're going to need to make plays here against this Dobbs Ferry front seven. But defensively, tackling has been an issue. 2 out of 3 games, they've allowed less than 20 points. But it's the missed tackles that have led to some big plays. And can they stop the run? That's where the big question to me. And for that reason, I'm going to go with Dobbs Ferry. They have scored 40-plus points in 2 straight games, Mars. Quarterback Harnett returning, he was super efficient. 8 of 9, 190 yards passing, and 2 touchdowns. And Kearns, he's kind of been that Swiss Army knife that has been an outstanding stud for them. He had 65 yards rushing, 117 yards receiving, made an INT on defense, and they got guys like O'Connor and Smith. And it's this offensive line, to me, that is going to dictate things. They're going to run the football, keep Woodland's offense on the sideline. I'm going Dobbs Ferry.
Yeah, I'm also going to go Dobbs Ferry. I feel like their offense has been phenomenal, 40-plus points in 2 straight games. Their rush offense has been top tier. The offensive line has been moving bodies around. And obviously, you're just seeing a team that has kind of been dominating, in my opinion. I feel like I really like the way that they've been playing the last few games. Their offense has been really, really good. So I'm going to go with Dobbs Ferry here. Woodlands, I believe... I think I picked them last week.
We both did.
Yeah, I think
we both did. Yeah.
So I was also surprised on that loss, but you know what? I feel like Woodlands is going to play a little bit tougher, but Dobbs Ferry I think just has too much. I'm going to go with Dobbs Ferry.
Let's go to another C matchup. We have Putt Valley 1-2 at Hastings, who's 1-2, and Putt Valley won 20-7 versus Tuckahoe. Hastings won 16-0 versus Woodlands. It was a nice victory for Hastings, and the run game really sparked it for them. They couldn't really find the most up-to-date roster, but I really like the way number 21 made some big plays on a rushing touchdown. Number 2 also had a lot of big plays. So running the ball is again, the mantra for Hastings. The question that I have is, can they stop the run? And Putt Valley, offensively, Caden Glenn, he returned last week, and he had over 100 yards rushing in a touchdown, made a big reception for 46 yards in a touchdown, 11 tackles. So this guy is a force on both sides of the ball. But, you got Dobro, you have Tarrant, Constantino, who can make plays on the offensive side. Defensively, it was very strong performance. They forced 3 turnovers, really strong against the pass. Can they make the plays to stop the run? I think they do. Guys like Mazzola, Constantino, Tucker made plays last week. I think they make plays again. I'm going to go with Putt Valley.
Yeah, I feel like the fact that Kaden Glenn is back is like a really big
A
momentum
real
swing
shot in
for
the
them. I
arm.
feel like yeah, it's really going to give them some momentum, and he played a great game last week, and I feel like this team is going to really thrive off of his return, and I'm going to go with Putt Valley as well. It's going to be tough going into obviously an opponent's home, but I just feel like they're going to get that big momentum swing having one of their stars back, so I'm going to go with Putt Valley.
Another big rivalry game, Mars, and that is the D matchup. You have Haldane 2-1 at Tucko, who's 1-2. These teams have played 30 times. This is the annual championship game for D. This is the regular season matchup, and then they play each other in November. And dating back to 2004, Mars, Tucko is 23-6-1 in this matchup, but Haldane has won 2 straight. And so very interesting. It never happened before in Haldane, dating back to 2004. And when I look at Tuckahoe, listen, the offense ran the ball a lot better. They ran for 197 yards, but they had 3 turnovers. And again, the injury to their quarterback, Bryce, I think, has really changed things. Now, he is more of a running guy than a passing guy. But again, now they have to filter around different quarterbacks. Durkin tried at the quarterback spot last week. He was 3 of 12, so they couldn't get a lot of consistency. Borghetti has been really good with his offensive line running the football. But the question is, can they make enough plays in the passing game? This defense had 5 sacks, but they gave up over 300 yards. And Haldane has shown the ability to move the football. They can run the ball with guys like Corliss and Gogler. Palace, the quarterback spot, throwing to guys like Thomas. I am going to go with Haldane. If they can slow down the run and force Tucko to be more of if they can get ahead and force Tucko to throw the ball more than they want to, I think it benefits a team like Haldane. Stickle is going to be someone to keep an eye on. He had over 10 tackles last week. I think Haldane wins, Mars. They have never won 3 straight versus Tucko. So this is going to be history if they do it, dating back to 2004. But I think it happens.
We have history possibly in the making, and I feel like this is definitely tough because it's a rivalry game. They play they play each other twice a year, and then they play in the section championship again. And I'll say this: I think Haldane has a lot of ability. They obviously had some struggles on third down, which is obviously tough. And the only downside with Tuckahoe right now is that they just feel like they're making too many mistakes, too many turnovers in the passing game. And I feel like because of that, Haldane's going to kind of structure their defense to really just try to prevent any sort of rush offense and just beg for a passing game and try to capitalize on those possible mistakes. So if Tuckahoe can really be more efficient on passing, then it might change the game. But I don't know if they will. I'm going to go with Haldane for that reason.
Thank you, Aiden, for providing that. Yeah, so I never, again, I go on Huddle. I see if they're the most up to date. Sometimes they're not. So it's hard unless you have an official thing. So I appreciate that, Aiden. Let's go to the next matchup. We have Hudson Valley Football League. We got Poughkeepsie 0-3 at Albertus Magnus, who's 0-1. Poughkeepsie lost 26-6 versus Peekskill. Magnus did not have a game last week. They were on a bye. And in this one, again, interesting one, but I'm going to go with Albertus Magnus. Poughkeepsie gave up 4 to 5 20-plus yard plays. I think Albertus Magnus is going to have opportunity to hit some big plays. As long as defensively they can slow down their quarterback, Poughkeepsie's quarterback, and Gary, who is the engine of that, had over 150 yards last week. I think they slow him down. I'm going to go with Albertus Magnus.
Yeah, I'm actually going to agree with you. I feel like it's the same kind of reasons, mainly because of the fact that it's really going to depend on how much they can slow down Gary and overall efficiency.
Yeah.
If they can really narrow their defense down and kind of just limit his play, then I feel like they're going to have the advantage. I'm going to go with Albertus Magnus as well.
Next up, Portchester 1-2 at Peekskill, who's 1-1. Portchester lost 40-7 versus Long Island Lutheran. Peekskill won 26-6 at Poughkeepsie. Listen, this is an interesting matchup, but I am going to go with Peekskill. They're at home. Smythe, it all starts with him running the ball, but Portchester struggled versus the pass, and I think Peekskill can hit some big pass plays. As long as they can slow down Portchester's run game is going to be the big thing, because they like to run with power. They like to run the option. Peekskill likes to bring a lot of pressure, but again, when you're talking option football, it's all about responsibility. So if Peekskill, they bring that aggressive but smart, attack the right keys, I think they do make enough plays offensively. I'm going to go with Peekskill.
I'm also going to go Peekskill mainly because of the fact their offense has the ability to make some big plays, especially in the passing game. I think, like you said before, that if you play a smart, focused, disciplined defense, then you really will get more opportunities on offense. So I feel like Peekskill has the ability. They have athleticism. They have the speed. They have the offensive capabilities. It's really just now putting it together defensively, and I think they will. I'm going to go Peekskill.
And I realized I didn't even have the Hudson Valley Football League schedule up, so my apologies to the audience. But with that, let's go to our final game of the week, Mars. And that is obviously Greeley at Tappan Zee. And Greeley is 3-0, Tappan Zee is 2-1. Greeley won 34-14 versus Panis last week. Tappan Zee won 27-6 at Edgemont. And let's start with Greeley. This offense has been electric. They have scored 30-plus points in all 3 games. They could beat you multiple ways, but their strongest is their pass attack, which is the quick game and also taking shots down the field. Obviously, quarterback Osh has had 5 touchdowns the last 2 games. Blakesley, the wide receiver, has been an absolute stud. Teams have done, last week they were putting 2 dudes on him all the time, and he still made plays. So it's very difficult to slow him down. He's been an absolute beast. But he's not alone. Weinstein had 2 touchdowns 2 weeks ago. They did lose Kim for the season, who's a big loss for them on both sides of the ball. So to me, the number one key on offense is protecting the football. 3 turnovers in the last 2 games. When they protect the football, they can put up points. Secondly, on defense, preventing the big pass play. Tappan Zee likes to take deep shots. It starts with the run game for them, but they'll go into condensed formations. They'll go into the spread stuff, find the one-on-one, and take the shots down the field. Keep everything in front of you. Those are the 2 big keys. Some guys on defense to keep an eye on: Kaplow, Sala, and Bloom. Those guys have been making some big plays, but they're not alone. Woolard, Slomsky, and Schwartz, they have a cast of guys who have made big plays and big moments for them. Thoughts on Greeley, Mars, before we dive into Tappan Zee?
Yeah, I feel like their offense has really been stout, and I feel like it has a lot to do with their weapons. I feel like they just been showing a lot of momentum up front, and I think their skill players have really just shown out. And obviously, Kim being out, for the year, essentially, I think is obviously a big deal. And the question is going to be, how did the offensive weapons surrounding Kim and Osh really step up, right? And I feel like that's going to be the big test for them to see who's going to fill that role. And there's a few guys that have already shown that they can. But, it's tough. Kim is one of the best players in HVFL, and I feel like it's tough that you lose a guy like that for the season. It's really going to be up to the guys around him to step up.
Yep. And Tappan Zee, they come with a balanced attack. They've scored 26-plus points in 2 straight games. The run game in this offensive line is going to have to dictate things, and they can help by keeping Greeley's offense on the sideline. It starts with Tofa, who had 2 touchdowns last week. Then they take the shots down the field, and that's with their quarterback Cavalian, with their wide receiver Piccioni. Defensively, Mars, this is the number 1 defense in the Hudson Valley Football League, not by much over Greeley, but they are number 1. Last 2 games, allowed 1 touchdown. They cause a lot of penetration in the run game, get you in 2nd, 3rd, and long. And then it's, this secondary. Can they disguise enough, to me, against this Greeley offense? They got to take away Blakesley, we know that. But they got to create some confusion pre-snap, because Osh is going to be very aggressive, and sometimes he turns the ball over because he's very aggressive. So can they take advantage of that? They had a pick 6 last week, which I'm going to show on how they just the slightest things of taking advantage of quarterbacks that they can do. Matchup to watch, Mars, Greeley pass attack versus this Tappan Zee secondary. That's my number 1 thing. Thoughts, Mars, and then we'll do film and then do our final pick.
Yeah, I feel like the Tappan Zee defense is really going to be the main focus, in my opinion. I feel like you said, Greeley's offense has been very high-powered, but Tappan Zee's defense has also been very efficient. So that's going to be the showdown I'm looking for this game.
All right. So again, we'll take down this, and then let's go into our huddle right here. And Mars, you see it?
Yeah.
Perfect. All right. So the big thing, and I'm going to start with Greeley. And offensively, we're going to look at Greeley offensively, Tappan Zee defensively. And I just want to start off by, you take a look at Greeley. They like to go into the spread. They will change some formations up here. I want you to focus in on the far end of the field, which is Blakesley. Look at they got 2 defenders. They got a guy right in his face and a safety right behind him. They literally have 2 guys lined up. This is what we used to call like the Calvin Johnson defense, for anyone who's a fan of the NFL, where they have 2 guys at him at all times. Now, with that, it pretty much says, hey, there's, we don't want you throwing it to him, but they're still going to throw it to him. And what they're going to do is get him the screen, right? So he's got to take a sharp move to the outside, get that guy's hips open and then come down the line. He does a really good start right here, and then they'll get some blockers out in space. The big thing is get Blakesley the ball in space. And there's a really good route run, nice block. I believe that is Kim on the edge over there. And now look at the space that you have. You doubled him, but you got that corner off him right away. And if you get Blakesley space like this, watch what happens. Again, he is tough to tackle. And again, this is just, they got guys knocking each other over at this point. But this is the kind of, again, you get him the ball in space, makes big plays, even when you double him. Now, what Blakesley does for this offense is not just, again, taking on double teams and he's an absolute weapon, but he opens things up for other guys. So here's Blakesley on the bottom of the screen once again, and I like what Greeley does here in early downs. You go into this condensed formations and throw out of it because it makes it hard if you got to bring guys into the box. It leaves one-on-one opportunities. And so, there's a safety off screen over Blakesley. You have a safety even leaning towards this area, towards Blakesley. So you have so many guys. You practically have 3 guys covering him. So that means on the far end of the field, it's one-on-one. And so Osh reads that right away, right? There's not a lot of change pre-snap. He takes one look to his left towards Blakesley to hold the safety. And now he knows where he's going. And watch the delivery. Great route, right in the bucket, leading to a long touchdown. So obviously, Greeley wants to get Blakesley the ball, but Blakesley also opens up opportunities for others, getting one-on-one opportunities. Now I go to Tappan Zee, and what I like, what they do is they've been disruptive up front. They'll get you into second and third and long and allow this secondary to make plays. And this is an example. 1st down and 10, trying to go into this heavy formation with a tight end, running the football with power. And initially, again, you got down blocks, you got some guys pulling. Initially, some pretty good movement. But look at this defensive line. Look at them fight off blocks. Look at the rally here. And again, guys like Keeperman making plays up front. It looked like it was open. Shut it down very quickly because they use their hands. They get off blocks. They rally to the ball. And if they can win that, get you in second, third, and long, this is what Tappan Zee is going to have to do. They're going to have to disguise things. They're going to have to look in unison in the secondary. You have the safety in the middle of the field. And when you have that, the question rises for the quarterback. Are they in man free or are they in some sort of cover 3? And so initially pre-snap, it's not that obvious, right? So you're going to see the routes here. They're going to run a go route on the inside and a stop on the outside. And so this inside defender, this force player, is going to dictate things. Now he opens his hips and the quarterback thinks, okay, I think he's playing man free. But what he does is he runs with him and then cuts off the route and goes to the underneath. And the safety then goes over the top. He's reading the quarterback. And because of that, the quarterback doesn't realize that. He throws it right away. He undercuts it, takes it to the house. The big thing that Tappan Zee's got to do is to create some pre-snap and then change post-snap. That's what they're going to have to do in the secondary, because if they give just the basic look to Osh, they could be in trouble. But if they can change some things, they might force some turnovers. All right, Mars, who do you got and why?
Obviously this is probably one of the biggest games in the HVFL for the year, in my opinion, because you have a very really high-powered offense. Really, obviously, Coach Clark has ever since he took over. Offensively, they've been high-powered. Defensively, they've been stout, and now they're seen as the number 1 team in the HVFL. But the next team that everyone's looking at is Tappan Zee, right? This is the biggest game of the year when it comes to this league, other than obviously getting to the playoffs and everything. But I feel like for Greeley, this is a big moment, right? You're going away. You're going into the opposing team's field. You're down one of your best players, and now what's going to happen next, right? How are these kids going to react to that? And I feel like at Tappan Zee's defense is being very stout. They're really tough. They have to play at the highest speed possible to slow down this Greeley offense and slow down Osh, right? So when I'm looking at this game, I feel like Greeley's going to pull it off. I feel like their defense has been very good. Their offense has been very efficient. And even with Kim out, which is obviously a big blow to the offense, they still have a lot of guys that can make big plays. And I feel like that is what's going to be really difficult for Tappan Zee to slow down. When you have only 1 or 2 guys, that's one thing. But you have several on Greeley that can make big plays. And I feel like with that being the case, it gives them a lot of opportunity to really own the time of possession, to really drive and own these possessions. So with that being said, I'm going to go with the horse Greeley here to go to the opposing teams, to go to Tappan Zee, win the game. I'm going to go horse Greeley.
I'm going to go with Greeley as well. I think, again, Tappan Zee needs to control the ball, and they need to keep Greeley's offense on the sideline. And if, again, Greeley can protect it, I do think they'll have a turnover without question. I don't think they'll be completely clean here, but I do think Greeley protects the ball enough, makes enough big plays, and will slow down the running game of Tappan Zee, making them uncomfortable. I'm going to go with Greeley as well. All right, everyone, that was our show. We went through all the games. We did some film work, had some fun talking. Appreciate you guys, as always, for tuning in. Don't worry if you missed anything. We finished the poll. Frank at 71%. Again, Mars, you're going to have to prove the doubters wrong, man. It's even higher than last week.
Man. I don't know.
Yeah, but we'll leave it at that. Good luck to all the teams this weekend. Had a lot of fun talking football. I know I'm a little bit sick, so the energy is not as high, but appreciate you guys as always. And if you haven't done so yet, hit that thumbs up and subscribe. We appreciate you as always. We'll see you all very soon.